Hi everyone, and welcome to our next edition of Meet the Creator Picture Books. I am so chuffed to be talking to Tom McLaughlin today about his wonderful picture book that I really enjoyed, which is called The Boy Who Painted the World. So, hi Tom, lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. How are you doing? You all well?
Yeah, not at all. We're getting a bit of sun now, so I'm in a
Did you,
good
did you,
mood.
you got the 10 minutes of sun you were allocated, did you? Yeah, that's
Exactly
it now.
right.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone until next year.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's all over now. Everybody's broken up from school, so it'll stop being sunny now because that's always the
Of
way, isn't it?
course.
Are you happy to do us a little bit of a reading to start us off, please, Tom?
I am happy to do a little bit of reading. I've got to warn you, I might stumble over the odd word because I'm dyslexic, and for me, writing a book is much easier than reading a book. But
Yes,
it's fine. We're amongst friends, aren't we?
we are indeed.
All right, I will get going. Yes, the Boy Who Painted the World by me, I guess. Once there was a boy who wandered into a book. Whoa, where am I? Is anyone there? It seemed to be completely empty. Except it wasn't. The boy was so busy looking around that he didn't see the mess that he was about to make. Ouch, ouch, ouch! Oh, sorry. I always make a big mess. What a calamity. There was paint everywhere. It's not a mess, said the paintbrush. Let's try something. The paintbrush didn't seem worried though. In fact, the green splodge was soon transformed. Ta-da! It's a huge Messiosaurus. You try now. You mean paint? I can't paint. The boy dipped the brush into the pot of blue. He was nervous, but the brush did its best to help. Oh, go on, just try. Your favourite shape. Oh, well, I like squares, but I'm not very neat. It was a wobbly square, but the brush didn't mind. In fact, it's the best square I've seen today. Why draw straight lines when you can be wobbly? It turned out there were lots of things that could be drawn with wobbly squares. The wobbly, the better. A robot, a steam train. It's a dumper truck. Beep, beep, coming through. I'll stop there. Otherwise, I will end up reading the whole book.
Well, yes, and although that would be a delight, I suppose I better ask you some questions. I suppose I better. So, did you always want to be an author, Tom? And how did being dyslexic affect your aspirations?
I didn't want to be an author because I didn't think I could be an author. Because when I was growing up, I found words really tricky. And as you can tell, just from reading a picture book, I still find words a little bit tricky. I had the mindset from very early on that because I couldn't do words and because I was sort of told that I couldn't do words, that sort of words weren't for me. Um, in fact, school was a bit of a tricky time. There was not many lessons that I kind of excelled at. I sort of like sport. I tried my best, but I wasn't great at school. I find it a really hard place to be, and that's because I was diagnosed with dyslexia. But even after I got the diagnosis, sort of nothing happened. There's no pill you can take to make it all go away and make it better. So yeah, school was a tricky place, and then I discovered drawing, and I found that drawing was my thing, and it filled me with confidence because I think it's really important for kids to have an identity. And I was like the boy who could draw. So then I just wanted to draw and draw and draw. And I had all these kind of stories and all these drawings sort of in my head, but I was far too nervous to kind of think that I could do anything with them because I thought, in order to be a good writer, you have to be really good at spelling or really good at reading. And it took me a long time until I was an adult to realize that storytelling and being a speller, good at spelling, are two completely different skills. So yeah, I loved drawing, but it was only very late that I sort of into adulthood until I was like nearly 30 that I realized maybe should try writing some of these ideas down.
I absolutely what I loved most about the book, of course, is a story about a child who doesn't think they're able to draw. And the way that you then twist the story so that even blobs become drawings is just amazing, and I loved it. And that sort of attitude from the child, I'm guessing that's based on how you yourself felt, but have you seen it in other children? Is it modelled on other children?
Yeah, I think so. When you see drawings from very young kids, they're big and they're bold and they're
Yeah.
bright and they just go for it. They don't really think about it. And then we get a little bit older, and then expectations don't always match our technique, and we can get a little bit kind of worried and kind of scared of the paper, and the drawings become smaller and more timid. And what I wanted to do was kind of show that sort of basically using really simple shapes, which is something I do when I go around schools and do lots of drawing with schools, kids at school, is but just by breaking it down using really simple shapes, we can kind of build up those confidences again. So yeah, and there isn't the sort of great thing about drawing is there's no kind of right or wrong, so it doesn't matter. It isn't like, well, this drawing is correct and that one's not. It's what kind of comes out. There are many times where I will be drawing something, and it's sort of turned into something a little bit different because like maybe the mark wasn't quite how I thought it was going to be in my head. But those happy accidents can be good accidents.
It is. And I love the cat and the spider blob picture instructions at the back of the book. Were they your idea? I thought they were an amazing idea, and I want to try them out with my granddaughter.
Yeah, no, it's really great. I've done that a few times where you just sort of making really splotchy shapes and then kind of drawing over the top of them. You can also do sort of things with thumbprints, which would be great for your grandkids. Is just kind of mess around, make things with thumbprints, and then wait for them to dry, and then draw over the top of them. And sometimes it's as kind of easy as that, just finding a way in for kids. Oh, I don't have to do the hard work, and that doesn't have to be neat. The splodgier the better, and then you
Yeah.
can kind of sort of see what it comes up with. So yeah, I love kind of different, whether it's kind of using simple shapes or splats or spots. And who doesn't want to draw a splat of cats, eh? What a great way to spend a day.
So, looking at your previous body of work, obviously you've written picture books, but you've also written lots of middle grade books as well.
Yeah,
And I was wondering, which do you prefer, or do they have different challenges?
they have different challenges. So the picture books tend not to be as daft and as silly as the middle grade books. There's a bit of silliness in this. But yeah, so it tends to be sort of more comedy books with the middle grade. It's much harder. It's much harder to write a picture book than it is to write a chapter book with sort of 30,000 words in. The sort of analogy I use is that if you imagine a box of Lego bricks, and if you've got 400 bricks for 400 words in a picture book, you can make something, but it takes a time. You got to think about which every brick is going to go, and you've got to construct it really carefully, and you've got to get a whole story out of this, and you've got to have dialogue, and you've got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's a difficult thing. If you've got a box of bricks that's got 30,000 bricks in, you can kind of play around and have some fun, and if that bit's not working, you can sort of change it. So the fewer words in a picture book make it much harder
Yeah.
to be able to kind of spin a narrative and to have something that's engaging, that's entertaining, and a really simple idea that hasn't been done before. It's really, really difficult. So they're both challenging in lots of ways. Writing a middle grade book is different, and that you've got to make sure that all the kind of pieces are going in the right direction, and they're all sort of working together. And if you're writing in first person, then that makes it harder because you're only writing through a person's point of view, and you can't have things happening off screen if you like. So you've got to make sure that that's kind of working. So yeah, I know, but I'm so lucky to be able to kind of work in both genres, and it's great going around schools when I get to do picture books with little ones and chapter books with older ones, and a sort of mixture in between. And then I got to get to do the drawing for chapter books, which is completely different to the drawings for picture books. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm very, very lucky, and I would say picture books are harder to write. I think everyone thinks they're easy because
Yeah.
not many words, but it's really difficult.
No, that is interesting because I think there is this perception that a picture book will be much easier to write because it's fewer words. But I totally take your point because you've got to get meaning into every one of those
Yeah.
few words.
You agonize over every page and the turn of the page, and does that word need to be there? And maybe that word shouldn't exist at all. Maybe this page has no words on at all, and you're just telling the story with pictures. Am I telling the story with pictures and words, or am I using them both to kind of weave together? Yeah, there's a lot going on in something that looks so simple.
And I have to say, I mean, my favourite is the Story Machine. Love Story Machine,
Thank you.
and I think Story Machine and The Boy Who Painted the World would both work very well with older children as well.
Yeah,
No,
we
it's that crossover type thing. It's not just
yeah.
younger children.
I also think there's that sort of thing that we kind of like, let's instead of getting a picture book, let's get a proper book. You get this kind
Yeah,
of attitude, and actually, picture books. There's a lot going on in picture books, and I know there uh I work with people at the Power of Pictures, and they're really really great. They go into schools and they take a picture book, and they can spend a whole term just looking at it
yeah.
and analysing it, and throughout the whole schools, not just the little ones up to sort of year 6, they're talking about each picture. They're talking about sort of where the story could go. What would you do if you were writing the story? So to kind of deep dive into picture books is a really nice thing. So yeah, I'm all for kind of you looking at picture books and reading them, beyond what we think of the kind of, oh yeah, we're on to chapter books now. There's such a lovely thing and something that should be used for kids, particularly maybe if they're sort of struggling with reading and writing, possibly if they are dyslexic, then it's something that's quite comforting, and it's something I'm not going to be stretched. I can just enjoy the story with this, knowing that I know how to read this.
And I have to say, I hadn't discovered until I had a look, Tom. I hadn't seen Jack the Fairy, The Day the Unicorn Stopped Farting.
Yes, I mean
And
that's obviously we've all got a great novel inside us, and I mean, that's clearly where my life and career has been building up to as a man who's in his late 40s. But in the Venn diagram of what we need, unicorns are parting. It's sort of it's bang in there. So yeah, no, that was a really exciting series. I'm about to start the third book in that. So it's basically a sort of kid who wakes up. He's sort of lives on a council estate with his mum and his uncle. Who lives next door. He sort of wakes up and he's a Jack the lad. He's a normal kid, likes playing football. He wakes up on his 10th birthday and he's grown wings. And he's like, what? What's going on? And so he finds out that his mum's a fairy, his uncle Dave's a fairy, like his auntie Nell down the road, she's a fairy, and they're in the fairy business, and their job is basically to kind of protect the magic world and keep it hidden. And he finds out that basically everything that he thought in his world and doesn't really exist, and he's not a human, like the Easter Bunny. He comes from Dagenham. He's a top fella down the road, and sort of, yeah, so he's got to kind of come to terms with his new world, and he also, something happens where he has to save the world a little bit.
oh well, as you do, as you do.
Actually,
Well, that answers my next question, which was going to be what you're working on next. So it sounds like you're working on the third one of those.
I'm working on the third one of those. So each story has a kind of different theme. So the first one is about unicorns. The second one, which is written and illustrated, is about a Bigfoot.
Mhm.
The third one, I can't say too much about it yet because we're still kind of hammering it out in terms of the story. But that's going to be out sort of next year. Really exciting. What else am I working on? I'm working on a new comic book series for Hachette, which I'm very, very excited about. And it is all about a cat called Alan. Alan is a very special cat because he's the world's first cat to be born with thumbs. So what's a cat going to do when he's born with thumbs? He's going to take over the universe. So it's Alan, King of the Universe, about Alan and his sidekick Buddy, who's a dog called Fido, and every day they try and take over the universe, and every day it doesn't really work, and they all have to go home and have their tea. But
That sounds amazing. Well, it has been a delight talking to you. And as I say, I absolutely love the book, and I think it's going to spark creativity in so many children and indeed in adults. So thank you very much for coming to talk to us, Tom.
No worries at all.
Enjoy the rest of your summer.
No worries. Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to our next edition of Meet the Creator Middle Grade. And I've got a really fun book that we're going to be telling you about today, because today I'm going to be interviewing Ramsey about the cheat book. So very much welcome to you, Ramsey. It's lovely to have you here. So for those of us that are sitting watching the video, I've got to say, you've got an amazing backdrop behind you. So what are those gorgeous pictures on the wall behind you?
They're basically comics that I've worked on, because that is my day job. I'm a comic book writer and designer. So every character that I create goes on my wall. So I'll have a cheat book cover on there.
Let's hope so. Yeah, you definitely need one. We usually start these sessions with a reading from the author. Are you happy to do that for us?
Yes, I will. I don't know if you know this, but school is awesome. Not convinced. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a first hand up, stationary, neatly aligned on my desk, reads dictionary for fun kid. You know, a dork. For dorks, school is a theme park of knowledge where every class is a roller coaster of learning. Where, when the day of fun challenges and exciting problem solving is over, they get given party bags filled with treats called homework. Ugh. The smell of textbooks is enough to make me break out in a stress rash. So no, I'm not a dork, but I'm not a normie either. Normally see school as an escape room that the parents have bred them into, where the only way out is to complete tasks before the final bell rings, or they get locked in detention forever. Sucks to be them. Like I said, I'm neither a dork nor a normie, because I'm a cool kid. And for me, school is a movie set and I'm the star. My typical school day goes like this. I wake up and slide out of bed. In the bathroom, I put on my morning headset, a gadget I invented that gets me ready for school. I try and fail to dodge mum's sloppy goodbye kisses, gross, whilst grabbing the last falafel wrap. My chauffeur Potsworth picks me and Wing, my best friend, up in a Batmobile and rockets us to school in record time. I do my cool kid strut through the school gate which makes all eyes swing over to my direction. And that's when the chanting starts. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I can't take a single step down the school corridor without hearing, "Hey Kamal, can I get a selfie? Hey Kamal, can I get a lock of your hair? Hey Kamal, will you sign my mop?" Everyone wants a piece of me, even the caretaker. But I just want to get to class.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So your main protagonist, Kamal, is a refugee and he's moved to the UK from Somalia, which echoes your own lived experience. Is he based on yourself as a child? Has he got the same sort of characteristics?
Yes. But I also had to make him a bit more extreme, because like to write this book, he has to go in a character arc where he will do anything to be cool and get to that track. So he might even ditch his friends, and that's something that I would not do. So I had to give him a bit more of a unscrupulous character.
Yeah.
But essentially he is me. I thought it would be easier. You know, they say write what you know, so I thought it would be easier if I went back in time and wrote about me.
And the book is so funny. And I think kids are just going to love it because, let's face it, there's plenty of gross out humour in there. You know, we're not going to talk too much about being sick over the head teacher, but there you go. But some of the themes are, of course, more serious within it. And I was particularly struck by the fact that Kamal's so worried about others finding out he's a refugee because he wants to avoid what he sees as the inevitable resulting bullying. Obviously, I'm hoping that's not from experience, but why was that important to you to bring that aspect out?
I think it was a little bit from experience, but also I kind of feel like he's at that age, that crossover where anything like you want to fit in, and anything that makes you notable, you kind of want to get rid of that and be more universal. I guess as you grow up, you realize, oh, your differences are strengths. But at that age, you just want to fit in. So I thought, okay, he basically hid all that information, and it's quite, yeah. I do think that some bullies, it's quite a hot topic now, isn't it? And a lot of people have opinions on it.
So, can you explain for us the characters Rakib and Atid in the book? I found very, very funny, and I was really interested to hear more about where they come from because I couldn't help thinking what an added pressure that would be for a kid.
Yeah, well, basically they're based on these two characters in Islam, where basically they say that there's two angels on your shoulder and they're recording. One records all the good deeds that you've done through your life, and one records the bad deeds you've done through your life. And at, like, not the end of your life, but at the end of the world, there's a big judgment day, and then they all your deeds get given, and then you get judged. So that was kind of the thing that they used to say at like mosque, and they'd be like, make sure you do good stuff because it's being recorded. It's like being on a Zoom call when the sign comes up, you're being recorded, and you're like, oh, so it was like, so I was like, okay, it would be fun. It'd be fun if like we have these imaginary characters because they're not the real thing. Because like in Islam, you're not really supposed to depict like characters in there. I thought a way around it is if I made them imaginary, and they are imaginary characters. They're not the real thing, and so I thought they could be. I think the Western equivalent of them is like the angel and devil on your shoulder, tempting you to do good or bad things. But in this case, they're both good, but I kind of saw them as rivals, and they're in competition with each other, trying to get as many good deeds or bad deeds. And I thought it'd be also fun if they comment on what's happening, and they're almost sort of like a bridge between the story that's happening and the audience.
Yeah.
And that a little bit harkens back to, like, if you read really early Marvel comics, Stan Lee, who wrote the comics, would often talk to the reader, and it was a really fun way of like breaking the wall and stuff. And I thought that would be a good thing to do in this. It would be a fun thing that readers would like.
Oh, you see, look, like now you're referencing the god. You know, we're not worthy. You know, the name of Stan.
Yeah. But also I kind of feel like, because Kamal does a few questionable things to get to the top, it's kind of good to have sort of like almost like an editor's note of like, oh, don't do this at home, kids, and or you know, just to comment on like, oh, he's going a bit awry there, and the angels were sort of like a good way of doing that.
Excellent, yeah, and they do, as I say, they really add to the humour, I think, you know, and it's almost, with them, it's almost a little bit of like slapstick type humour that it adds, you know, which I found really funny. I really did enjoy that. So when you were a kid, I'm guessing you, as you've already said, you mainly read comics, but did you have any other authors that you enjoyed reading when you were a child?
Yeah, I mean, I did read books, but I was very selective. I started reading, I think the first book that got me into books. It was Treasure Island. It's very like traditional, but it's actually really good. I always tell people like you should give it a go because it's really Long John Silver is quite a complex character, and there's a bit in it where it switches narrator because you're with Jim the whole time, and then halfway through there's a chapter where it switches. It's a really clever book. But I think there was one book that I picked up by Diana Wynne Jones called The Lives of Christopher Chance. That was the one, and it's about this boy who can go into his dreams. And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" And I was like, "Let me find more books by this author." And then the second one I got was Archer's Goon, and then that was amazing. And then I started picking up more random books by her, and then she became my favorite author. And she did this series called the Christomancy series, and each one's like a standalone book, so you don't really need to read them in order. But they're full of like amazing ideas and stuff that I've seen. And she also wrote Howl's Moving Castle and stuff like that. Yeah. That's really good. And Susan Cooper, Dark is Rising is brilliant. I read that every other Christmas. Such an atmospheric book and really cool. Yeah. And but I'm definitely like one of those reluctant readers that really works hard to read a full prose book. So a lot of the listeners here are struggling with reading like more denser prose. I'm in your boat, but the rewards are huge. So go try and get out there. But yeah, I'm trying to in my work be a bridge between those two worlds. But yeah, definitely Diana Wynne Jones was a huge favorite writer for me growing up.
Well, it has to be said, you have excellent taste. You have excellent taste. Absolutely love Diana Wynne Jones. Absolutely love her. Yeah. So, lastly, this is, of course, volume 1 of Kamal's Adventures. Yes. So, am I right in assuming there'll be more to come?
Yeah, I'm drawing the second one, and it's already been written. It's a what can I say? It's a school trip to a forest that I would not name. Okay. And there may be there's a lot of British lore of things like the Beast of Bodmin Moor and all this kind of creatures and stuff that live in forests, and Kamal might be on a mission to capture a monster.
Sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. I really think that I don't think Kamal's going away anytime soon, because I think kids are just going to absolutely love his adventures. I think it's a really clever book and a very funny book. So I'd like to end obviously by saying thank you very much for coming along. It's great talking to you, and we will of course be looking out for the next adventure. Thanks very much.